This is this is a comedy of errors, and I'm here for it.
Sorry, that was planned. That was part of the bit. I think that all we said was that that is Clay, who plays Peach.
Yep.
Hold up, I'll figure this out.
I will do.
That is Clay.
I can get +4 Nairs with Peach. I will prove it. If you need to, like, I will show that I play Peach if needed. But let's focus more on the crew battle because I think that's a little more interesting. So Ari, what was like the game plan going into this? Like, how did you decide like who was gonna lead? Because it looked like everyone was really well aligned for what they had to do. So I'm just wondering what went into that.
Well, Clay was the one that made most of the decisions. We decided to send in Olive first because we thought that would just be like the best matchup against not Crystal Farley, and we wanted to save some other players for later.
Yep.
I think that was a good read on your part. I think they've led with NCF a couple times now, and they usually get away with him getting a lot out of that. So well done on that front.
Thank you.
And I think really you and Olive really had the hardest jobs, right? Because you had to go into Codeman and Geo, and Olive had to play lead. So
yeah,
I really hate leading in crew battles personally. That's why I'm always very impressed when people play well as a lead.
Yeah, I used to be the lead for the team for like the first 3 crew battles, but I complained about it. So
yeah.
So now I'm not the lead anymore.
Kind of like a difference between being the point character and being the lead character, or in being the anchor. So I'm just kind of curious as to like what where you think people like what do you think goes into being good at those different roles? Because like I hear you on. I've had to kind of adopt being the lead in previous crew battles, like when we did regional crews at Gommel, like we played against the other Ontario crew. And I wound up having to go in first just because we figured, okay, this is like we're pretty evenly matched. We just like got to get a lead. I happen to line up best against like what they have, so we just have to get a lead and counterpick. But like, what's the what do you think? I'm cool with that, but other people aren't. So what's your take on like what makes or breaks you for those skills?
I think I just play better when I have more warm up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being able to play a lot beforehand as opposed to just being like the first one going in is just more helpful for me personally. But yeah, I don't.
Not a problem for Olive though. Like Olive can just kind of like dive in head first, and he's like good.
Yeah, seems like it.
Nice. Always a good virtue. I think that's a Sheik player thing, like low key. I think that's one of the reasons she's valuable in crews in some ways. What do you? Yeah. Someone else asked something.
I think there's been a lot of conversation around like how good you're in the past, and like how you kind of like took a step away from melee and you came back, Ari, and you've been really showing that you can step up and meet a lot of these players where they are and like bring back that old kind of gusto. Because coming back into this league and putting the effort into melee again brought back any like competitional drive or like drive to get better at the game again, or are you just really here for the league to compete for your team?
It's brought back the drive for sure. I've been really wanting to play more melee all the time, as opposed to just putting it off or like not wanting to.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's really been nice to have a team to play with and root each other on and stuff like that.
Good.
Sick.
I'm personally happy to have you back in the scene and competing. I think your Luigi is something special, and I've known about you for 7 years, like closer to older than that. because you had a legacy back then that carried yourself all the way to like Fredonia. But it's good to have you back and competing and doing things again.
Thank you very
Those
much.
Nairtech chases on top plat. I'm sorry, I gotta talk about it.
You're the
Holy
Luigi
shit.
I analyzed with Codeman when we were working on that matchup. It just hit me. You're the one that he and I were working on, because I was like, where have I heard that tag before? Yeah. So yeah, no, you're very good. I've seen your play. It's very solid. So I'm actually not. Yeah, this makes way more sense. I'm like, who's this Luigi player?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Like, honestly, Luigi's sick. Like, he's a gambling character, but like, does keep the game interesting.
Yeah.
We'll let Falcon be cool and be in the game. We have to let Luigi too.
It's sick. Well, thank you for joining us and for coming on for an interview, and well played again.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Left with us. We are gonna. Well, I think the surprise was ruined. We had a bit that we were gonna run. That KirbyKaze was Clay for a while, and I think you just got like really excited about finding out about a player.
Yeah, I thought like I was excited. I got distracted because I was like, where have I heard that tag? This is someone that I know, and then I just went, oh my goodness, yeah, because like I remember we were like when I was working with Codeman, we like had to come up with like some versus floaty strats, and it was like in the context of the Luigi matchup, and I was like, no way, and then I looked at that, like I was kind of like going back through stuff, and I went, oh my god, and then here we go.
Yeah, they previously known as Elu, but tag switched to Airy, for many different reasons. But they're pretty good. They were known as Upstate as the person who everyone prepared for Luigi for a long time. Because I started this game as a Luigi player, and then I switched to Falcon. But when I started, they were like, "You want to learn the game through this character?" I was like, "He's funny, he's cool." Because I was watching a bait at the time, and then everyone just told me I've played too many sets against it. Area. I played too many sets against Area. I know this matchup, and I just get stuffed by everybody. So I ended up switching.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's kind of like the trouble with wave dash characters, right? Like they're really quick, but they're kind of clumsy. So a lot of times, like that's kind of the dynamic there. Which is why I was surprised that she just went in and took like 8 trillion stocks, because I'm like, I would have thought that like with between like double space animal, what somebody would have put up more like up tilts and things in the way, but like it just didn't really materialize that. It didn't like shake out that way.
Yeah, I think Aerie specifically is pretty good at like changing up their timings or trying to put themselves in a position where like you can't just like put something out and have it stuff her. You have to think about what the timings that she's looking for, which then makes you think like, okay, maybe I'll choose a safer option and take more steps back, which that means that instead she's just kind of like choking you out and choking the stage out. Which if you have to play even safer against Luigi, then you're just giving him more room to kind of like pressure you and make you make a bad choice. And as soon as he gets his grubby little hands on you, you're taking 40% to losing your stack. So
Yeah, I would say very good at like interrupting the typical rhythm of the broad strokes of the Luigi movements. And no worries, Ari. You did well.
yeah. It's good to see. I think I missed the crew battle. I only got to come in and watch the end of it. How did they shape out being so far ahead of stocks? Was it Airy pulling ahead that far, or was it?
It was Olive. Olive led and took 6.
Awesome.
And then Clay went in right after and maintained the lead. Ended up taking 5 off Skitter and Boba. I think those were both pretty critical moments. Olive getting the bonus 2 on Skitter, and then Clay taking 3 off Boba really set them up for. I think they really needed a lead going into the last 2 because BBB was saving Codeman and Geo, and if you're going to send in Clay that early, you kind of need a stock advantage to make up for having your captain and first pick as your anchor.
Yeah, I would agree. Good.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
that's a
say,
good point.
I think this kind of gets to like something. Maybe Cruise has changed since I played back when like we had to power the CRTs by rubbing Pikachu's together. But nowadays, like I always was of the mind that like saving your very best players for like the very end is generally like a way that you lose. because you generally want like your strong people going in on like middle people that you can like that they can like plow through, and then like force like because if you take like 3 with 1, right, or like
And then
2 with
force a big
1,
counter pick.
yeah, it puts a ton of pressure on the other team, and I kind of think that like anchoring Codeman and Geo, because they were like 2 of the stronger people on that crew, right?
Absolutely.
It's Codeman is the first pick and Geo's the captain. So
Gotcha.
on
Yeah.
paper,
So
the
like,
2 strongest.
yeah, so they're huge. I just kind of get the impression that like we're not using our we're not gaining tempo. Like if this is a card game or like Pokemon, we're not establishing tempo and taking the driver's seat at any point. We're just kind of reacting and like waiting to die. And I don't think that's a good way. I don't think that's a good way to play it.
Yeah, I think
Tactically.
also like it puts you in a position where you're thinking about it and you're like, okay, let's just chip away at these good players, and then when our good players get in, you'll get like 1 like free stock or 2 free stocks to like just hit them and beat them, and I can do that. I can take the 1, but it's also a good player. Like when you put in a good player against a good player, there's a chance that you might just get worked and turn around. That person's warmed up. They just played 2 different people that they took like 8 stocks off. Like they're
Mhm.
moving around. They've been moving where you've been practicing, but not playing in competition. They're mentally already like rock solid, and you have to build that. You have to build that kind of temperament.
Yeah. Like I think that like how they I think that how BBB I think no not BBB golems how the golems used Olive I think was really really clever, because Olive has never I don't think Olive's ever taken like fewer than 5 stocks, right? Like Olive's been just kind of a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like using Olive to establish to like dictate the terms of like how the fight of how like the counter picks go from that point on, I think is like an excellent use, because Olive's one of their stronger players, right? Or is
Yes.
he? Do I have that
I would
wrong?
say
Olive
Olive.
has been
Olive's
an
yeah.
overperformer within that slot. Like even not counting this week,
He's a
has been
second pick,
taking
right?
on average 5.
He's a second pick, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he's not a captain or a first pick, but like still, that's like a very, very solid like tier 1.5, tier 2 pick. Like that's still super, super good. And I think that expending someone that valuable early, just like because unless they like lead with their captain or something else or something comparable, like a two pick, like that's such a good opener. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to pull up the thing of the team, so when you ask these questions, I could just answer them immediately.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hadn't actually
Uh,
noticed this until you just said it, but out of like the golems later picks, like Olive, Gunner, um, Conceit, and Transient Being are all top two top 2 performers within their pick slot out of the
yeah,
whole league. So like out of everyone picked second, Olive is in the top 3. Out of all people picked third, Gunner's in the top 3.
yeah.
Out of
Mhm.
all people picked fifth, Conceit is tied for second. Like they just have insanely strong depth, which I actually didn't notice that trend before now.
I think they also have good mix in like play styles and like play speeds that people want to play the game at. Like Airy likes to play the game fast, Magnagonar likes to play the game fast. Olive kind of like moves around the player, and like Clay likes to play the game plays Peach, and Nikki plays slow, and Conceit can play a little bit slower. Like you have good ways to like mix things up and make players try to adapt to different play styles, which I think is one of the bigger things that can like really lead to like an evening out of the stocks or a big deficit. When like somebody's not able to switch really quick, you can catch up very quickly. That player can come in and change the speed of the game immediately and like not allow them to like keep their momentum that they have in this one specific matchup. But that also
Mm.
comes down to people being able to switch up against characters and how often you have to do that in bracket and things like that.
On that note, speaking of like switch ups, so something that like I find that's like kind of fascinating about crews is just like how powerful ice climbers generally are. Because like, and I think that when we see Swebby, like Swebby is like a stock machine. He just like put in stocks and like kills come out. Like it's crazy. But I gotta wonder if the Sheik players are gonna have to like adapt to this. And I think that like Sheik is actually kind of in an interesting spot right now because like you have the knobbling, like you have the wobbling there, but you've got like knobbling kind of like filling that void in a lot of
You're
ways.
still taking 40 into chain grabs or a handoff. Like
Yeah, so I feel like, and Sheik doesn't really. Sheik is still like very heavily affected by that because you still have the chain grab to 60, then like you get nobbled, you blow up. So like it's still basically lethal on her, like when she gets grabbed in like a
Yeah.
lot of stage positions. So I gotta wonder if in a cruise format, are we gonna see anyone try the Zelda pick, the Dreffen strat? Because like, unironically, I don't think that's like necessarily a bad idea when you're going to go up against somebody. And like cruise, you just need stocks, and Zelda takes stocks, right? Like like they're clumsy. She hits hard. Like it's not. Are you allowed to Zelda? Zelda is a utility special. I will
You're allowed
die
to
on
press
this
down B.
hill.
Yeah.
Like
I think I
see no
think I
reason
asked
why you
last
wouldn't be
time,
able to.
and I'm pretty sure it's a yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You're allowed to press buttons.
Yep.
Yep.
I think because like, what do? If you push down B, you just instantly quit out and be like GG's and walk away. Like,
They're
I
like the same
also-
character. It's like we don't. Zelda and Sheik are a social construct. Unironically,
Yeah. I would 100% agree with that.
Mhm.
On that note, like you're talking about Icy Chic, I mean, one of the biggest overperformances, arguably so far, is Bodhi against Poseidon in
Yeah.
the Knights of Nano versus Moose. Bodhi, I think, was a last round pick, like a round 7 pick, and took 2 stocks off Poseidon, who was a round 1 pick.
Mm.
For lore behind this, for you, KK, there's a group of people in Rochester that Matt basically pulled all of his friends together and taught Melee in the last like about year. And he calls it IBMA, IB Matt's Associates. And he basically has own tournaments run only for them to them play each other and like grind and try to get better and win and stuff like that. There's a lot of lore that I won't get into that I could talk for like 20 minutes about. But essentially all these players are like super brand new players. And I would say probably like 5 to 6 of them have now decided like they're gonna start attending other tournaments in Rochester and Upstate. They're gonna start playing. A couple of them have joined the league. A Mercs is a part of IBMA. Bodhi is insert URL is, and they have all learned the game and are trying to do what they can in the last year. Like have never touched Melee. Only some of them even played Ultimate. So
Wow. So
yeah.
like brand like new.
And Soupman, sorry, I forgot Soupman. My apologies.
Soupman, okay. Like
Shout
I
out.
will say they have killer tags, so that's always
Yes.
a plus.
Yeah.
But like man, they're new. That's amazing. Like
Yes.
like gotta love the people that like because it takes it's hard to get into this game. It's simultaneously like the hardest but also the easiest to get into this game with the advent of Slippy and everything.
Mhm.
So
People get good so fast.
Yes.
but like the barrier of entry is like harder in certain ways because everyone's already so good. So like there's only so many players at like bronze 3, right? So but like yeah, if they're like if they're hustling and they're like they're committed and passionate, like oh my god, yeah, I bet being able to like be like yo, I took 2 stocks off a first pick, that's got to feel like so good if you're like somebody new.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
You talk about. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say Bodhi has all the access to all of the coaching all of the coaching stuff that Swebby does. So he's kind of pulled down like the basic stuff to try and like really help Bodhi grind out like the regrabs and the nobbling and stuff like that, which he's working on. I don't think he's exceptional at it, but he's better than he ever has been. Like he's been doing a lot more. He plays a few things. He has some things that he chooses to do that like put him in bad spots. But I mean, he's still a new player. He's learning. He's learning those parts of the game. And to be able to take 2 stocks off of Poseidon was incredible. I think everyone was really happy if he got 1, and he took 2, which was huge for them. It's gigantic.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking about players being new and getting better fast, I mean, Swebby is one of the best captains numerically, tied for second best. That dude's been playing for like a year.
Yes, he's been playing for a year. There's a lot of contention about he's been playing for a year, but
Okay.
All right, no, I gotta hear this. Like, I don't know what that means, so you gotta have to explain it now.
I don't know all the lore behind it, but there's a lot of
he
people.
started playing a year ago.
Yes, and that's what a lot of people hear, and that's what a lot of people say. And I've been told that that's not necessarily true. And then there's like dark arts around it, and he's got like a secret dark arts Icy's coach that I won't name here that I've met in person that he teaches him all of his dark tricks.
Dark Gen X.
No, it's not. It's the person who teaches Dark Gen X as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
I will tell you, at a minimum, like between every time I play Swebby, he has gotten a lot better. So even if he didn't start in May, it's like the gap between like October Swebby and December Swebby and now Swebby is way bigger than it ever could have been before this era.
He has such a passion in him that I believed it, and he started in tournaments. His first tournament, Matt saying, was last May. That's the first tournament that he ever attended. Regardless of how long he'd been playing before that, he has had nothing but a fire in him. To every time he takes a loss, it's almost like he takes it personally, and he sits and grinds that matchup, that person, and what he did wrong out the wazoo.
Oh,
Like he
dang,
just
so
pushes
that's-
those things every time, and he just spends like he's got a full-time job. It's not like he's got like all the free time in the world, but he pushes himself to really improve and really chase down wins, and it's pushed him to, I think, number 2 on RPR. Pretty sure, or 1 or 2 or 3. I think Zanya's number 1 on Rochester right now. But
hard to
Sonya
beat
should probably be
Sonya.
number 1.
yeah. But he pushes the character really hard. His Nana's cheating. I don't know what his Nana does or why it's different than everybody else's, but I've seen her just rip up smashes when he's at like 60 or
That's
on
like
the other
that's
character.
normal. That is supposed to happen.
That is normal? Okay, all right. It doesn't feel like it happens for everyone else. It's crazy.
It's probably because like it's probably so what he might be doing, and I would need to like look at the games, but I would imagine like one thing that I've always wondered about like Ice Climbers players is like how many of them actually know how Nana's AI works. Because like there's certain positions that you can play relative to the opponent when you're recovering. And if you know where she is likely to attack and what order she does things in, I would not be surprised if he is influencing that, because that's information that came out like recently, and it's the type of thing that like an old head wouldn't really look into. But I
Yeah.
think that a newer player on the character absolutely would look into something like that. So, Beckfin and only Beckfin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stochastic absurdity. Ethan, no. I condemn that. Like, all right, whatever.
Stochastic absurdity, no logic. So is that like are we talking about like Nana essentially being like RNG manipulation then?
Yes.
When you're outside of the range of her? Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because like there's an entire video on it about like how the Smash Brothers AI works, and like they delve really deep into Nana. So I could absolutely see like how a newer player like playing the character would be like, okay, so how do I like use Nana as effectively as I can when I'm recovering? So it's not just a matter of like where do I go, it's also where do I go relative to her.
Wonder if Wobbles took any of that into consideration. Probably not.
Wobbles was a freak of nature, so probably.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, he was nuts. Dude, every time Sobi talks about something where he's like struggling with neutral, I'm like, go watch the way Wobbles moved around, because he got in on people when he shouldn't have, and he just like worked them into a position that made him gave him advantage. So
Wobbles' aerial usage is still better than like 90% of current like top ice climbers. I will
Yeah.
die on this hill. Like the way he
Yes.
nared was just like a work of art.
It's so crazy too that we can say that about this game. It's so nuts.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
just the A button. We're not doing anything else.
No, it's also like the A button, how your stick is pointed during
Yeah.
jump squat, how whether it's short hop, whether it's full hop, the timing of the A button. I could go on. I can be insufferable about this.
Dude, every time someone asks me about gentlemen's, I just bring up the fucking Super
Oh,
Mario
God.
64 video about half A presses and like try to figure it. I'm like, if you can watch that video and understand it, then I will explain what a gentleman's is to you. Until then, you just push the A button 3 times.
There's actually like a post that like so somebody I coached a Falcon player and like Andy Rivers, I think, had like he was having trouble with gentlemen, so we looked up like a gentleman guide by like S2J. Let me see if I can find it, because all it is like there was a post about there was a post by from some guy named Shadow Ninja. Yeah, it's still there. Let's
Shadow
go.
Ninja, yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
just like we just copy pasted that and referred to that forever. It was amazing.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's so ridiculous how it's like letting O go during hit stun frames so that it doesn't count the A press. You have to get under 4, and there's a minimum of 6 or maximum of 6.
And the counter increments when you press or release. Like,
Do you just push on box? Do you just push the button 3 times? Hope for the best. Or do you do other inputs?
you have to tap quickly on the first 2, because if you release during the hit lag, it's not counted towards the counter. And then I press and hold the third one. I also try to like bail out if I'm gonna whiff, but I have learned the ones on whiff. I'm not as consistent at them because you have to get the timing instead of doing the double release. That one's a lot harder.
The walk is impossible. I don't know how none does that. He does it every time.
Yeah.
Which is
I
crazy.
also think it's like it's pretty rare that it's important. Like, how often do I want to miss jab 1 and 2 and then gentleman anyways?
Yeah.
Like that
I
usually
mean,
means
it's
I
a
messed
good.
up.
I think it's a good mix up. I think it's a good like you like stagger that third hit, which is a pretty big and meaty hit that could, if they're past, I would say probably 50-60, they get knocked down, which Spaceys are often in that range. I think she probably is too.
Was
If they jump at me, it can
grab
work.
master race.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love jab grab. I love jab grab.
I used to double jab grab all the time, and I stopped doing it once I just started to do. I got to go back to doing that. It's really good.
It's good to
But
connect your
I
move
learned
to
I
like
learned
something that kills them instead of something that does 8. I agree.
yeah absolutely. I learned to gentlemen's when Mango was on the fence telling everybody that you just push the A button 3 times, and I was like, cool. I guess I'll just push it 3 times and fuck it up 40% of the time.
So I want to talk about like something in particular that's come up in the crew battles, and I just want to like kind of get your guys' take on it. So when somebody is on like a run and they're like cleaving through like stocks in like the tens column at this point, like when Tet popped off or when Bing pops off, or if Codeman is like
Lukey.
going if Codeman's on something that day.
Shout out to
Like
Lukey. Second
Yeah.
biggest stocks taken in any crew battle. 13.
yeah, like Blue Key, like yeah, like you've got Porp, you've got Bing, J, Tet, Blue Key. Like when somebody's like popping off like that, what is the game plan? Like how do you figure out how to stop? Like what do you even try to stop the bleeding? Is it too much of an ask at that point? Like I'm
So-
curious. I'm curious
ahead.
as to like what the if we did like an autopsy on those kinds of runs, what do you think are some of the conditions that have to be present for that to happen? And how can you like head it off if you can head it off?
Excluding the Tet one, because that one is different. Tet was just playing insane that day. But
Mhm.
a recurring trend that I notice for most of the runs that were like that is that people would send in a weaker player to deal with 1 or 2 stocks from a much stronger player, and then they just get 4 stocked, and then you're still dealing with like 3 stocks of Bing. So the time that I took 10 stocks, it was I like dropped 1 to Mia, 4 stocked Firewater, and then traded stocks with Tet.
Yeah.
And it's really tempting to do that, but I really think you just need to lead with that strong player. Just send in Ted against me. Don't give me a nice climbers to knee 4
Mhm.
times.
Yeah, I think that's one of the classic. I think that is one of the classic blunders, and I think that is like one of the things that happens. Like, I think whenever you're sending in like a player to like take 1 or 2 stocks, that is not an economical use of that player. I really think one of the biggest things is yeah, like Ethan put it best. Like using your weaker players is the nuance and subtlety in crews. It's hard. I think that this is part of why like the characters like Ice Climbers are kind of awesome because they do have strong counter picks into things like Sheik. Like you can put them into like I will die on this hill. You can put Ices into Luigi with counter pick. Don't at me. But like like you need those polarizing matchups that can like work for you. And if you don't use them effectively, yeah, it's just things fall apart.
And I think that some of it can come from like, especially if you're a weaker later pick, that it can be really scary to be the anchor. But sometimes it's better to be the anchor into 1 stock than to be playing into someone who's already hot, already confident, playing with 3 or 4 stocks and nothing to lose. Like, if you have 1 stock left, you have to play scared. You can't play any risk, really. Like, if I back her off stage and I get ledge hugged, then I just lose. If I have 3, I can play a risk, and even if I die, it's okay. I have 2 stocks against Tet instead of 3. Like, that sucks.
So Swoggles actually brings up something good here, which is like the issue with that is that the worst player needs to clutch and not get 4 stocked. Putting them in first is less pressure. At least that's my reasoning when we've done it. But here's the thing. So like it is less pressure, but I guess my question is it's also less pressure on the person who's already in, the person who's already on a run. Like you can't really just like you can't just like have someone go uncontested like that. Because otherwise you're just like burning stocks. Whenever
You have
like
to make them feel worse.
I would never like play a card like if this was a card game or Pokemon or something, like I would never play a unit that wants to just take like half a unit, whose entire purpose is to take like a percentage, like a small fraction of a unit. And I think that we need to value like the lower picks in that same way, because if you're not looking at them in the same way, then Yeah, like things are you can't go in expecting that you're going to like win if half your units are only taking 1 or 2 stocks. Like that is setting yourself up for like a colossal failure. You have to like find a way to like take tempo.
I think the best thing you can do, honestly, and I think what happened with Luki's 13 stocks is they lacked a player that has done this they lacked the player that has done this in bracket against Luki when he's tearing through people and he meets Nikki and Nikki stuffs him
Yeah.
and puts a wall on him and they didn't put Nikki in there going into
They,
that team.
they
This
didn't
is like a
bring
known
Nikki, right?
phenomenon in Upstate. Yeah, between him and Nikki. And I think what you need to do is you have two schools of thought when someone's running through your entire team. You either put in a player that's going to play super aggressive and try to meet them where they are, or you want to put in somebody who's going to stop them from feeling like they can move the way that they were. You need to meet them on an extreme of either you are putting in an immovable wall or you putting in an unstoppable force to meet their unstoppable force that they have right now.
The cool thing about that observation is that's actually harkens to like what Codeman is getting at in the chat, where it's like if somebody's on fire like Tet, he's positing that put in a player that can change the pace of the match to throw them off their rhythm, and that's basically what you're getting at. Like either put somebody who can push back like eat super hard, or somebody who can present a wall. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I think that they also just need the skill to back it up as well. But I think that like in
Yes.
older crew battles, we saw this like when people would put like, granted this is, oh my god, I'm gonna show my age. Like when you'd have like Mewtwo King's Marth like running through like entire teams at like FC Diamond or something,
Yeah.
and then like after he like dispatches Vigio or something, it's like the next thing out of Midwest is Trails Ice Climbers, because it's just like,
Yeah,
okay,
shout out.
yeah, like deal with this.
No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree. I just think like yeah, nickel and diming somebody until they're gone because you don't want to like burn your top players is or your best players is completely defeating the purpose of having your best players. You want those people to then stuff those people, and then now that they've stuffed, they can take their 2 stocks against someone worse and try to do more than they did. And now you're saying who's got the bigger hammer, who's got the better player to put someone down, and then that's when you're playing the character counterpick game. Because maybe you have a worse player than the player who just beat your top player, but
Mm-hmm.
the playstyle is different enough that now you're nickel and diming and you're down. Instead of
No, keep going. I had a thought, but keep going.
you're nickel and diming instead of like being able to now turn it around and hit somebody, and now you're back to like where do we find our big lurch lead? Where do we find our big like this person can do this against somebody and take 2 without losing more than 1, or like take 3 without losing more than 2, and now you've inched your way back rather than like trying to stuff somebody and then take 6 stocks yourself. Like could happen, but like playing that volatile, you've earned your lead. Now play with it in a way that allows you to keep your lead until you can get your next player in a positive matchup in a way that they can then explode the next area.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot of I've heard a lot of coaches, not all of them, just say like counter pick meta isn't always going to matter or isn't going to matter, and I think it matters way more than people are giving it credit. Not because of player differentiality, but in like skill wise, but sometimes because of matchup, strictly because of the play style that they have to play.
Agree with that. One comment I'd make is that, and I think that this is kind of a good segue into something I wanted to ask Porp about for sure. Actually, wait, what character you play, Tsunami?
I also play Falcon. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, yo, let's go. So we were kind of like talking about this in the chat briefly, but I wanted to bring this up with Porp around. So Falcon Anchor,
Mhm.
like Falcon Anchor's kind of been holding it down, like he's been putting in work. So where do you feel about like how do you feel about that? Because I think that in an environment full of like sheiks and such, and like and space animals, like this should not be as effective as it is, and yet it seems to keep showing up as like the boogeyman that just won't go away. Like it seems to be the winning formula. Is this just like how the matches have shaken out, or is it just like is there something to Falcon like actually being like somewhat decent in the last slot?
I think my personal opinion, because I saw your message in the chat, and then I responded to it, and I think it has to do with like the character itself is volatility, and I think because when people are holding it down and the anchor comes in and it's this character that is just explosive and fast, there's a nervousness that sets in that I have to hold my ground against this character who's going to be threatening me the entire stage, no matter where we are.
Mhm.
And then that kind of like ekes into people's brain, and they're like, I have to stop him from moving. I have to do this. I have to do that. And they're too worried about not letting this guy get momentum instead of actually killing him. And then that's the difference. You're allowing Falcon to play his game with you now because you want to stop him instead of punishing him.
Okay. Porp, what are your thoughts? What's your take on this?
So at least when I'm the person as the Falcon, I'm really comfortable with really any matchup in the league right now. I would say that my hardest is Fox, but if you give me a floaty or even a Sheik or a Falco, like I'm really comfortable against Falco right now. I think that I did well into all right when I played against 2.5 dogs. I took like 3 with 1.
Mhm.
Those kinds of matchups are like, they might be bad on paper, but Falcon kills you when he gets an opening. And in one game of a crew battle, I think it's way harder for me, way harder for my opponents to like be able to mix up enough. Like if you play a full set against me, then you can mix up your tech habits. But me hitting one read on a roll in, that's a quarter of the stocks you get to play.
Yep.
It's a way larger percentage of the game.
And I would say that, like, with that in mind, like, we're talking about reading a roll in. So would you also agree with me? Because my whole thing with Falcon in, like, the anchor position, or Falcon and Cruise in general, is that Cruise is a format that rewards high impact. It rewards fast and deadly. And in not, like, ideally something that doesn't require tons of reps, where there's, like, time for you to choke and, like, screw up. Which is part of why like characters like Sheik and Jigglypuff and Climbers have traditionally been quite good characters in Cruise. It's also why like gimpy foxes tend to like also like shine, pardon the pun. So with that in mind, like, so would you say that the Reed Falcon is often like kind of the way you want to play it, because like coverage strats and read strats, like turning it into a 50-50 or like a 1 in 3 that where you never get reversaled if you miss, that's not a bad place to be.
I
Yeah.
do that a lot. I know some of the aerial RTC stuff, so I can play for reaction tech chases and still stomp roll in.
Okay.
And that risk reward is just so fucked up on every knockdown. Like,
Yeah.
because if you're spamming roll away, then I get to start reading you with me on roll away, and you die at 30,
Yeah.
or you take the wake up in place mix up, which is heavily favored for me, because so many of your ideas are in place, or you can full hop or roll. But if you do wake up shine, wake up smash, wake up spot dodge, I can cover all of those, even if I'm not the best at covering tech in place on a given day.
Yeah, you can almost cover tech in place strictly with kneeing where they're going to land, and then following the tech afterwards if you need to. And if they tech in place, do a dash dance mix up. Like it's one of those
I
things.
think
That
Gravy pioneered that one.
Yeah.
That one works in the corner. I think it's double frame perfect if you're not in the corner. So I don't go for it.
That's fair.
It's really tight, but I do it
Just
in the
go for
corner
up there, it's
sometimes.
fine.
But I think
Yeah,
like
yeah, up there.
like worst case scenario, you knee where they're gonna land. They half spaceys think like, oh, I can mix up, and they die instantly, or they do tech in place or a tech roll, and you just do an aerial mix up that is probably either in favor for you if you can neither shield, or you do a mix up that then puts you in a 50-50 scenario where you're now playing a game against somebody who is scared to get hit by the big move. And like that's if you are afraid of Falcon, that is his biggest tool in this game. At any point, at anything that you put him in doubles and singles and crews, anything. When he comes and steps on the field, if you have fear, he has the ability to manipulate that fear into an advantage point for you.
For sure. Okay, so this, I know we said we weren't going to talk about underperformers, but I do have one I want to ask about, and it's not a player, it's a character. How do we feel about Falco in Cruise? Is Falco, like, because I feel like Falco's fragility is really bitesome sometimes.
You can
And
call. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think
yeah,
there are
no, it's
some.
just like he doesn't really seem to like have a good matchup into people the way he used to, and I'm just wondering like how that plays out, or if you even agree with that.
I
I
think
don't
there are.
disagree, but I think there's two Falcos that I think have overperformed. I think Dominion and Bluekey have
True.
both in several crew battles taken multiple characters off the board. I think
Dominion
he's
is the best value pick of the whole league.
yeah.
I
He
stand
ate
by
Monk
that
in a
very
match.
strongly.
Yeah, in a matchup where we were like, if you get 3, you're gonna do really well. That's what everyone was thinking. He then cleaned out Monk and then
Just
took
took
I think
4.
1 or 2 more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he took 6 that crew battle. He took 9 in
Um,
week 1. Like he has not taken less than 4, and he was like a 4th round pick.
Who
yeah.
does DPD play? Am I
Sheik.
right in
DPD's a
thinking?
Sheik main.
Okay, got it. I was like, why do I think that they're a Falco? But no, I'm thinking of Dominion, I think. The
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
D. Okay, gotcha.
Just while we're on Dominion, I want to gush a little because that's my boy. If you look at the 4th picks, Dominion has taken more than twice as many stocks per match as the 2nd best 4th pick, who is Bart Simpson. So
Yeah.
Bart is already a good 4th pick, and Dominion is twice as good.
Yeah. He has outperformed his placement exceedingly and done it in places where his value has been immense. So
Mm-hmm.
it's but I don't disagree with you with the Falco part. Going back, because I do think that Falcon has gotten way better than against Falco over the last few years. So it's no longer just like I get to wall you out and kill you eventually. The Sheik matchup, some people think it's favored for Sheik, some people think it's 50-50. Some people think it's favored for Falco. It's way easier. Fox Falco, I don't know. Every spacey has a different opinion, and every non-spacey also has a different opinion. So I don't really know where that falls anymore.
So,
Go ahead.
okay, no. Keep going.
And
I
I
have
was
a
just gonna say,
question.
Marth seems to be the only thing where if you put a Marth in front of a Falco, I think Falco can win that. That's fine. But they're not always ready to play a war of attrition when they walk into a crew battle. When you have every other character is gonna be a game of mix-ups. It's the difference of having to find a way in instead of having to play around you and with you. And Marth's a big like jump for that character, I think.
For sure. So let me ask you. So Dominion and Blue Key are clearly like are clearly like leaders here in terms of like Falco performance. What things do you think they do that the other Falcos need to do to catch to like kind of catch that? Like, is there something that they do that's like similar that like puts them into it, that allows them to be more valuable? Or like is it just like, I'm curious, do you think that there's something that about their style that makes them more effective that could be emulated?
I think some of it's a captaining thing, like who you're sending in the Falcos against. I think
Mhm.
the Falcos have been looking really good against characters like Peach and Samus, and
Okay.
much weaker against like the midweights. The volatility out of Marth and Sheik has paid off a lot more often against the Falco players, whereas the Peaches and Samuses aren't really fully capitalizing on it. And so they're getting to play 80 neutral interactions where they deal 13% and chip out the game that way, or sometimes deal like 70-80%.
Yeah. I noticed that Fox is absent from that. So like you don't think like Falco into Fox I feel like is always like a tenuous subject.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that one?
I think that
it's
one comes down to player skill so much, where
Yeah,
it's like if it's like Cowbell against Dominion, then I fucked up. Like I shouldn't give Dominion Cowbell. That's a hard match for Dominion to play. But if it's like, what's something that's more equivalent, like All Right against Cowbell, that could go either way. I would probably favor. I think it's usually better for the Falco team, but even if the Fox wins, just because it's usually harder to use a Falco than a Fox.
Yeah, Fox you can put on like literally anything.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing about it is that those characters not only come in so many different skill sets because they have so many people playing those characters. There's so many different ways to play those characters because of the amount of tools that they have. So you have to consider like how many different things, because I think Bluky and Dominion play very differently. Bluky likes to set up with lasers and put himself in good positions and find his way that you're approaching incorrectly or not defending yourself and put himself in and then punish you. He wants his one hit and to kill you. Dominion likes to play neutral. Dominion likes to move in and out
Dominion
of
is so good at holding
yes.
advantage.
Yes, he likes to hold his advantage. He likes to be in a good spot and make you get hit and make you like feel bad about the choices that you're making and make you make worse choices in that scenario. They're not playing the same game when they play. And they move around each other and play the game differently, which gives it very like an interesting way to look at like what they're doing, because I think the way they're playing the game is just different, in the both of them, so I don't think they're doing the same things to gain that advantage. I think their play styles are leading more into things. I think Dominion's play style leads more into floaties and doing better against floaties, and I think Blue-Key's play style leads better into, despite four stocking Boba's Puff. I honestly think that was crazy. He just played out of his mind. But I think Blue-Key plays better into like midweights and fast fallers where he can kind of get his hit and really push his punish to the end of it. Dominion wants to play this game with you where he tacks on percent and puts you in bad spots and gets you off the stage and kills you. Blue-Key wants to kill you when he touches you, so he wants that one touch to matter and be a good touch. So.
But but when you're describing how they do it, the mechanisms through which they do it, you're also like emphasizing position for both of them, though.
Yeah,
like
I think
if you're picking your spots, like I would think that that's kind of like that lends themselves to like floaties in either case. Would it
Yeah,
not?
Blue-Key's best run was actually only against floaties.
I
It
guess
was
that's
against
fair.
Ares, Superman, Olive, and Clay.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I might be wrong. I would assume Blue-Key's playstyle is better against. Maybe Falco's just good against floaties, and people are bad. I don't know. Maybe I guess you're right. I didn't consider that because I only ever play him with a fast faller, and I didn't really get to watch his runs.
Falcon.
I think
is
there are a
just
lot of
Okay,
midweights and floaties in general in the league, especially the teams that Blue-Key has fought. Like Blue-Key against golems. Like, of course you're
Yeah.
going to fight floaties if you're fighting
Yes.
golems.
Yeah.
They don't have a fox, I don't think. They
Sure.
have, I think the fastest faller is Yoshi.
Yeah. And yeah, I think Falco in general is a good character, and he just has different ways to do it. I think there might have been an element of people underestimating them because of their picks, or because of like S tier travels here and there. They're pretty, despite being a part of Upstate, a huge part of Upstate, they are pretty far from everybody. Like to make it to any tournament is over 2 hours.
That was one stat that I wanted to talk about briefly that I calculated was using the regional data you helped me get. I found when different regions were picked on average, and also how many stocks per appearance a player from that region takes.
Yeah.
The only two regions that the two regions that were picked earliest on average were Buffalo and Central New York. Central New York, 3 of the captains. So me, Monk, and Clay. And then Key was also, I picked him quite early. And then Buffalo is known as quite a power region. More interesting to me, though, is that there are 3 regions who have universally gone positive. And those are Buffalo, Central New York, and S tier. S tier has taken more than 4 stocks per appearance on average, like across the whole region.
What's S tier?
S tier is like Binghamton, that the southern part of Rochester under the Great Lakes. So like Binghamton and that area right next to Pennsylvania.
Okay. Oh, southern tier. I see.
Yeah.
I don't know if
that's
okay, gotcha.
Notably, Capital Region and Rochester have taken below 4 stocks per appearance. But still close. Still both over 3.
Yeah.
But Rochester distinctly, on average, picked earlier than S tier, yet taking 0.4 less stocks on average over the first 4 weeks.
That's pretty big.
It's significant. That's like a 10% difference.
Yeah. I think Rochester gets a lot of buff to their social credit due to just being the biggest region and most social region in general. I think we have the biggest low to mid player. Like if you were to tier everybody in the region, we have the biggest presence in low to mid tier, which means we have a lot of players and a few like really high top tier players that go to tournaments and perform every single time that we go. So I think in general there's a huge community in Rochester, and they get a buff in general socially because of that. Just being the bigger region. But I think we also have been playing really well, and I think everyone in the crews, regardless of where they come from, has taken a step up to try and learn and get better as soon as they got drafted. I think everybody sat down and like picked up the game.
Absolutely. Not at all said in a Rochester's bad way, just purely in a, since I've been in Upstate, S tier's kind of been viewed as like a weaker region, and they're very much have not been in the league. They are a powerhouse.
Yes.
That's sick. Yo, when people surprise you like that, that's what shakes things up. That's what keeps it interesting. Because if everyone like if everything just goes according to plan, then like what are we even doing here, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest performers have been players that were picked in the second to fourth rounds. I think it was not Chris Farley, Blukey, Dominion, DPD,
DPD. We'd be
and
remiss not to mention DPD.
Ethan.
Only
And
some of the captains knew about DPD going in, but
yeah, Ethan, Bart Simpson, like these players have played pivotal roles in wins in all of their games, and they have mattered a lot. And they are not the captains, and they're not the first picks.
I also want to mention R-Star. I know that
Yes.
some people were a bit incredulous at how early Swebby took R-Star, but he has definitely been living up to being picked that early. Is the second strongest second pick in the whole league, only behind Blukey.
Yeah.
And had very important performances both against Aviators and Moose.
Yeah. Not to mention that Nick Priamboyle, known as a Fox main, mainly only plays Fox, played Sheik against you and was able to hold his own.
Did trade stocks, yeah.
Which is huge. We need I don't think we win that crew battle without Nick doing that. I don't think we edge that
Definitely
out.
not. You have one more stock of me in there, and it's rough.
Yes, absolutely. It's huge. That was huge for us. So him being able to edge that out, and I'll take credit. I warmed them up. I talked to him about the matchup before we get in there. But
Nice.
his Sheik was playing really good. He was on he was on an off controller, so he didn't feel comfortable playing Fox, and he felt good with Sheik, so he just ran that, and we were like, whatever, we'll do what we got to do. But he kept up. So I think there's a lot more depth in the players in the middle range than I think people gave credit when drafts were happening, including me. I ranked a lot of people's drafts like mid to low that turned out way better.
I didn't think Moose's crew would be quite this good.
No,
I thought
neither
they would
did
be
I.
good, but I didn't think they'd be.
I thought they'd be the
undefeated still 4
gambler
weeks
crew.
in.
Yeah, I thought they'd be the gambler crew. You took a bunch of like very explosive, very talented players that like to play aggressively and or like set up their situations so they make these big flashy plays, and they play way more consistently than I thought. And putting in the effort with it too. So it's huge.
Mountaintop making a comeback. Y'all just wait.
Dude, I have no doubt. You like
We'll be right behind you.
Yeah, I think Ted getting into it and feeling comfortable again and rolling things. He's going through stuff himself, but he's somebody that I think could like. Okay.
Yeah.
He could definitely just like take the entire cruise by storm, and just put down 8 stocks each set, no matter who you're putting in with him.
Yo, you've seen him warmed up, but wait till you see him warmed up with a full moon. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, he's definitely a demon on the sticks. So,
all right, that's all I got.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even touch any of the points we wanted to make. We just kind of talked. It was awesome. It was actually.
No, I mean, we've got so much more that we can go through, but
yeah,
I figured we wouldn't need most of it.
Yep, and we're about to bounce into the next game, which is
me against Aviators.
The EduPorp team versus the Aviators.
And actually, I'm gonna leak this while we're here. Avi and I agreed to lead Swervy against Lime.
Oh,
so this will be Swervy's first appearance, and he gets to fight against Lime, and I'm really excited to see how well he does. He's been working a lot with Electroman, who some of the people in chat will know. They've been figuring out practice routines and all of that shit. So I'm really looking forward to see where he's gotten.
Awesome. Well, good luck to you. And it was wonderful talking with both of you, actually. I had a great time.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. No, I'm kidding. All right, I'm going to bounce.
All right, later.